Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Neoweather Live.
Thank you for joining us. I'm forecaster Mark Spencer alongside Brian Ivey on this fall-like Wednesday.
It's feeling much chillier out there, and we've kind of set up this much colder pattern, and wait until we talk just a little bit about how cold it's going to get Friday.
It's true, yeah. We don't have too much weather to talk about today. I didn't turn on a light. You know it's dark over here in the studio?
Darkness.
Hey, let's put some light on the situation.
That's much better.
I thought it was really dark on this side of the one side of the screen. I'm like, well, that's awfully weird. I probably look a little better now. No, probably not. I'll try.
That's all we can ask.
So we don't have too much current weather to talk about this week. We're going to actually talk about the nice severe weather outbreak we had on Saturday.
The biggest tornado outbreak on Sunday since 2002 in Ohio.
That's right.
It's very, very impressive. So we're going to go over some damage that we've seen across the area, a montage of different kind of video. It's pretty impressive for what we normally see with these Ohio-type storms.
That's right.
We're also going to go over some radar images and teach you a little bit about what to look for with different types of severe weather signatures also.
That's absolutely right. Some interesting things we saw on the radar here on Sunday. Of course, Brian and I both covered for about 3.5 hours
busy
on our Facebook page in terms of severe weather coverage. It was one of the busier events we've had in probably a good 3 or 4 years in terms of coverage. So we were glad if you did join us on our Facebook page for our coverage on Sunday. Really do appreciate that. It definitely reached a very wide audience for sure.
Great to see. And as always with our content, if you do enjoy getting this type of weather information, make sure to like, comment, share, so we know you guys are watching. It really helps out, kind of get the word out to all your friends and family as well. But you know, Sunday's event was just really impressive at how much of a big scale thing it really was. There was just multiple tornado warnings. There was multiple areas of damaging wind to watch. But we did expect some of this, didn't we?
We certainly did. Yeah, we had been watching it for a good few days prior. We talked about it a little bit too. In a couple of days prior to that as well. It's a tough event to forecast. These November severe weather systems are tough. Early November is kind of our second mini severe weather season, right before we head into winter pretty much. So it's not uncommon. We have several within the past 15 years that did significant things. 2002, as Brian mentioned, many of you remember the tornado hit Van Wert. That was an EF4. That was November 10th, 2002.
One through Twinsburg, I believe.
There was one through Twinsburg there. That was several years ago as well. So it's not uncommon to get the type of weather this time of year so much. But with these types of systems, they're very, very hard to really nail down. Okay, exactly where is the best chance for tornadoes? Where's the best chance for damaging wind, timing? And all this other stuff, they're very hard events to really forecast.
Yeah, it's not normally the same setup as what we see in the springtime.
Yeah, no two systems are alike in that particular case. They all have kind of their own mind.
We see the big contrast of warm and cold air. Temperatures in Minnesota and North Dakota were in the teens and single digits there Sunday evening.
We were in
the upper 60s. Southern Ohio was in the low 70s.
They were in the 70s. Yeah, they had sun.
Crazy. So, that's a huge difference over a 500-mile to a 1,000-mile area. And that huge contrast of air along the front really creates a lot of lifting mechanisms. And there's some good wind energy there. So a lot of stuff really came together. But sometimes it only takes certain things to come together in the right spot, and we saw that several times.
We saw that several times, yeah. A lot of the confirmed tornadoes we had didn't have tornado warnings.
Yeah.
They occur so quick and so rapidly that you really can't pick up on them on the radar because they're occurring between radar scans. We'll kind of talk about that here coming up, too.
Yeah, if you want to dive on in, what do you want to take a look at
The first thing we'll take a look at is not this graphic at all. It's this graphic right here. We'll get to that next one. Sorry, guys. So this is the current conditions and everything here, Brian.
Absolutely. So right now across the state, not really too bad. We're seeing a decent amount of clear skies in many areas, a decent amount of sunshine there from central Ohio into southeastern Ohio. There's been this pesky band of lake clouds along a little frontal boundary that's kind of set up all the way down now. Look at that, all the way over into Indiana. Just, again, a little boundary here, all the way into Lake Erie, right along the shoreline in Ashtabula. That's kind of been over this area today. So that's a mostly cloudy sky. Otherwise, we're kind of anywhere from mostly sunny overwards to more like partly sunny in much of the state. Some of you are seeing long periods of some nice sunshine. Temperatures overall, not horrible, but it's on the chilly side of things. Many upper 40s across the northern portion of the state. Akron, Canton right now at 50, 52 down in Dover, New Philadelphia. And then across southwestern Ohio, generally speaking, right around 50 to the lower 50s at this time. The system that we've been watching over the last few days is still across the south, and you can see there across the Tennessee Valley up into the southeast and back in towards Texas.
Sorry, Brian.
We're dealing with, I'm not seeing where I'm pointing.
I know, right?
That is the issue. Decent amount of rain here. That's not going to plague us. That will move generally off towards the east-northeast. So overall, we're in a bubble of some high pressure for the next day or so. We will see another system move in. That will be during the day or more towards the evening on Thursday night. That'll bring a few rain showers through, and then comes the big cold air. Thursday night into Friday, you want to pull up the modeled temperatures.
Ooh, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, this is going to be pretty impressive. We're going to see that front drip in. It's going to bring just a few rain showers, and then that cold air filters in behind it. It's going to be a good setup to get the Lake Erie snow machine going, and we will produce normally a couple bands of lake effect snow with this. So look at how cold our temperatures are going to be. And we've been talking about this on Facebook, on our different social media platforms, posting some things. But these are temperatures, if you look at the map back behind me there, you could see temperatures all the way into the 20s going into the day on Friday. My goodness, it's only going to warm up to maybe 31, 32 degrees for most of you. And then Friday night into Saturday, high pressure moves in. We're going to clear out. Those temperatures are going to go boom, all the way down to about 20 degrees near record low territory, especially for the northern half of Ohio there on Saturday morning. Crazy.
There we are. There's Saturday morning,
Yep.
folks.
You can see there, right
Low
there.
20s.
Absolutely. That's going to be some impressive cold across the area. And as far as the lake effect goes, we will have a band that connects up with Lake Huron. Generally looks like Ashtabula County into the eastern half of Geauga and Lake County. Where squalls persist, you could see maybe 3 inches of snow. I think most of you are probably going to be more in the 1 to 2 range. And always with lake effect, you never know 100% for sure going into it. So you never know. Maybe it will over-surpass in portions. We see 4 or 5 inches, but not looking likely right now. If you're east of, let's say, Lorain to Cleveland to Akron area, you're probably not going to see anything more than a coating on grass. That'd be about it.
Be about it. Yep. And really, it's not going to last very long either.
No.
The snow really, it'll stick around for a short time, then it'll all melt. The ground temperatures are still fairly on the warm side, so it's not that the snow isn't able to sustain itself there because the ground will eventually win out in terms of temperature. So we will see some snow, and then it'll melt after about a day or so. And we do warm back up going into early next week, so we'll be above freezing.
Yeah, luckily.
For a good part. Yeah,
It's too early for
absolutely.
this.
It's too early for this. Yeah,
Especially if it's sustained day after day. Yeah, save that for later in December.
absolutely. All right, well, let's move on here. Let's go to some tornadoes.
Lots of them. Not
Lots
just some.
and lots of
Tons.
tornadoes. So, well, we got the numbers right behind me here.
I lost
17.
count.
17 tornadoes just on Sunday. Our average for the year. The year, 16. This year, so far, to date, we've had 30 tornadoes in Ohio, almost double our average. That I haven't seen. I haven't seen it. This is the first time I've ever seen that. We have seen a little above average. We've been below average for several years in terms of tornadoes.
Absolutely. It's been a
where
pretty
we've been
quiet
averaging
pattern.
across the whole state, maybe about half of that 16, 8, 9, 7 tornadoes or so. But no, we had a lot of them yesterday. Now, a lot of these came from the same storm, but the tornado came, it dropped, it dissipated, the storm moved on, it recycled, it dropped tornado, and so on and so forth. So each tornado is its own. They don't count, okay, different storms made a different tornado. These weren't supercells that moved across the state either. It was more of a big line of storms, and a lot of these are what we call QLCS tornadoes, or quasi-linear convective systems. Tornadoes that form on the front of squall lines is more what these tornadoes are. And that's pretty indicative by the strength of a lot of these tornadoes. A lot of these EF0s, EF1s. We even have some EF2s in there too. And all the EF2s are actually mid-range EF2s, so they weren't like borderline major tornado or anything like that. Lots and lots of tornadoes, guys. So here we go. Some of these aren't listed. So Norwalk and Wakeman aren't listed on here because, well, we got a lot around here, and I just couldn't fit 2 more. So Norwalk and Wakeman were both EF1s of winds of 90 miles per hour. Fitchville in Huron County was an EF0 with winds of 85. That also goes for down here in Ashland County, Nova, an EF0 with winds of 85 miles an hour. And then I'm going to have to jump around a little bit because I didn't put this in the same order. Republic was an EF2, winds of 110. Steuben in Huron County was an EF1 with winds of 105. Bloomingville was also an EF1, winds of 100 miles an hour. And then we go to Clyde. Clyde was an EF1 here, winds between 90 to 100 miles an hour. West Lodi was an EF1, winds of 105. Then we get to kind of a big one here. This was a surprise. Williamsfield here. Now, they said at first this was a macro burst. And I'm sure you've heard the term microburst or downburst. So a microburst is a big, large downburst that extends about 2.5 miles out from the center of where it all occurred. A macroburst is the same thing. It just goes beyond 2.5 miles. They actually upgraded this to an EF2 tornado. They found damage in there. Winds of 127 miles per hour. As we get out towards the western side of the state here, we got South Vienna, which is down here in parts of Clarkson, Madison County. That was an EF1, 95 mile an hour winds with that. Salina was a long track tornado out of Indiana. It was an EF2 tornado with winds of 120 miles an hour. A lot of damage on there. We posted a video to our Facebook page on that. Out in western Mercer County, this tornado actually occurred first. It then lifted, and then the tornado in Salina happened. But this tornado out of western Mercer County came out of Indiana into the state. That was an EF2 with winds of 120 miles an hour. Not listed also on here, Wabash, Mercer County, EF2, winds of 120 miles an hour. And then finally out here in far eastern Ohio, in the little town of Calcutta, EF1 tornado with winds of 190 miles per hour.
And so, it's rare to see tornadoes in that portion of the
goodness,
state.
it sure is.
County, especially the southeastern part, based off research, has not had a tornado since 1950.
That's correct, yes.
Crazy.
So it's been a long time for that part of the state. The National Weather Service in Pittsburgh covers a lot of this area in east central Ohio and in the western Pennsylvania, and they've been well above average in tornadoes just this year, too. I mean, they've had tornadoes occur out here in the eastern part of their area
in
the spring, where it's more hilly and mountainous, and they've had several tornadoes out there this year. So tornado activity this year is a little bit above average now for the year.
Oh, yes.
Compared to the past 10 years anyways, how they do that average. But I mean, overall, it's been kind of, here's a bunch, big law, here's a few, here's a big law, here's some more, here, here's this big law. So that's not been an overly active year in terms of multiple days of tornadoes. Nothing like 2003 where it seemed like the whole month there was a tornado outbreak every day. I remember being in high school. I was a senior in 2003, just about done with school, and like May began. It's like good, almost done with school. Going to be graduating, and I was really big in the weather then too, really big. And I just remember every day watching the Storm Prediction Center's website for outbreak after outbreak and watching this line of just severe weather drop. Everything from large hail, big damaging winds, big tornadoes, slowly making its way towards Ohio. It eventually did make its way towards Ohio. It wasn't as bad by the time I got there, but we still had some tornadoes. We still had a lot of wind. And it was like 2 weeks of just nothing but almost severe weather every day. It was almost scary.
Yeah, that's a lot. We saw that with the outbreak back in, I think, 2013.
Yes.
Out in like the Moore, Oklahoma tornado.
2013.
That moved, the whole system moved into our area, and I think we saw some decent severe weather after that as well.
2011 was another outbreak year, especially in the plains.
That was a huge one out in Dixie Alley there.
Out there as well,
April 27th super outbreak, of course. Yeah, and we've gone through a lot of these periods of either nothing or boom or bust.
Exactly.
Really, and that's how you get your averages, folks. It's not always the, oh, wow, this isn't 16 tornadoes this year. Something must be off.
Yeah. Also worth mentioning are some wind damage reports. So this is not all of them. It's a big, huge list of wind damage reports, and I'm not going to report every single tree that fell in the state of Ohio.
We'd be here all day. There were so many different trees.
It'd be an hour-long show just talking about wind damage only.
Yeah, take it away, Mr. Wind Damage Man.
So wind damage in Kipton, Lorain County, winds were 70 to 80 miles an hour there. There was a microburst confirmed in Boardman, and that had some, a couple people were like, no, it was definitely a tornado. They said it was a microburst, winds of 95 to 100 miles an hour. We do have some radar imagery of that. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit too. Findlay, Hancock County, especially the north side of town there, wind damage, winds of 80 to 90 miles an hour. Of course, there was a substantial wind damage if you're anywhere from northeast Ohio, from roughly Strongsville all the way to Trumbull County with that downburst that moved across there. We'll talk about that too. And of course, there were also several other reports of trees and power lines down, buildings damaged, and some other property damage too. So it's not a all-inclusive list, but there was a lot of damage. Hey, if you got damage in your area, post it in the comments. We'd love to hear what you saw on Sunday. with that said,
yeah, we'll show you some video pictures and whatnot from that area of those strong downburst winds all the way from Strongsville through Brunswick, North Royalton, Sagamore Hills, and Northfield, Nordonia. We'll show you a couple pictures from Boardman. You guys can kind of see what they were looking at as far as, is this tornado damage or is it just straight line winds? We'll see. And we'll have a bunch of looping radar that you can enjoy from this super
so we're actually
Ohio
going to
November outbreak.
We're actually going to show that next here. I also didn't mention both Hayesville and Worcester had EF1 tornadoes.
Yes.
And I don't have the wind speed readouts on those.
The Worcester tornado hit in almost the same exact spot as one that just happened about 5-6 years ago.
That's
that
right.
was at the RO.
It's the OARDC. It's the Ohio State University Extension for Agriculture out there. Very, very big complex out there.
Just on the
really
south
good.
side of town, and we were doing live severe weather coverage, and we saw that coming out of Ashland County, and that had just enough spin. It's like, oh my gosh, this is moving towards the same exact area, and we tracked it through that area and mentioned the street names where it actually hit and whatnot, and luckily it didn't do a ton of damage, some tree damage, minor building damage and whatnot. But it's all about where these tornadoes hit a lot of times. You can have a huge tornado out in the middle of nowhere that's not going to really make much of a big to-do or anything, and then you have a small little guy that goes over a big neighborhood, and all of a sudden you have a bunch of people without power and a bunch of house damage. So all about impacts with weather.
Absolutely. So here's the just the radar loop of everything kind of coming through. It's not an all-inclusive loop because I can only fit so much into it, guys. But here it is. This starts at around about 5:45, 5:50 here, and it'll actually jump in here shortly. And you're going to see it all just push off to the east. It also includes all the storm reports and warnings that were issued as well, all pushing off to the east. It actually ends just prior to the warning getting issued for eastern Columbiana County. But you can see it was quite an extensive package that extended all the way down into, actually extended down in the parts of southeastern Missouri. It wasn't as severe down there as it was up here. And really where the severe weather occurred up here, we actually thought this was going to be more back to the south and west. And they did get severe weather out there, don't get me wrong. But a lot of activity right in here is where most of the tornadoes for the day actually ended up occurring. You can see all the tornado storm reports populating on the screen. But it doesn't really look all that impressive, does it? We don't see big supercells. We don't see a massive squall line racing across the state. It looks all kind of disorganized and almost messy. And that's what makes this particular setup just kind of difficult to forecast because we don't exactly know where these spin-ups are going to happen. You really got to dig and look for them. And they happen so quickly that they easily get missed. But when we Monday morning quarterback it, it's like, oh, how did we miss that? It was so easy to see. Well, because, it occurred right here. And we're looking at it at this scale. We're not going to necessarily see that tiny little couplet in one scan and then it goes away.
Yeah, that's the thing. Some of these are only on the ground for a minute or two.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it happens either right in one scan or it's even in between some scans. And when we're trying to look at the whole complex of storms all over northeast Ohio, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of square miles, my goodness, it becomes very difficult to try to pick out each specific area.
Absolutely. And we were actually talking about this at lunch today, about what has changed in radar technology. So, yeah, a lot of these storms didn't get tornado warnings. Otherwise, we'd have this long track of tornado warnings going across the state. A lot of them didn't. However, we're able to see a little bit more in the way of rotation a lot sooner than we used to. And that's because of not so much the radar technology in itself changing. It still scans the same way generally. We do have the dual polarization stuff, which is really helpful. But what's changed is how often things scan now. They've changed what's called the volume coverage pattern, which is how the radar scans in a circle. It tilts at different angles from about a half a degree up to 19.5 degrees. How when it scans certain things has changed in the past 3 years. And instead of getting updates every 4 minutes now, we can get them as quick as about 90 seconds, depending on exactly what mode that the radar is operating in at that time. And that's huge because a lot of times with these short-lived tornadoes like this, like Brian said, they would occur between radar scans. Yeah. We have no idea that something occurred there until someone calls and says, hey, we just had a tornado. It's like, oh, really? We don't see any evidence of a tornado.
There's no evidence at all, right?
Because it occurred in a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Well, it occurred before the radar beam got back around there and got to scan it. So, it makes all the difference having that change in coverage pattern. in the past few years, that has really helped a lot. It really improves what we're able to do as forecasters and meteorologists in terms of covering severe weather for everybody. You can see a lot more.
Absolutely.
So it's really huge that those are some of the biggest changes we've had. It's something so minor, but yet is significant, and this is one reason why they have changed it.
Yeah, it's definitely made an absolutely huge impact for us to be able to see things much quicker and get that information out. And one of the things is that we look at is behind me here, the reflectivity, the regular radar you're used to seeing on screen. The other thing that we typically look at, especially when we're looking at wind speeds, rotation, is what's called our velocity product. So that allows us to see how fast particles inside of the storm are moving and be able to estimate the actual wind speed that we're seeing aloft in this storm and kind of extrapolate how much of that wind is going to come down to the ground. And we can get a good idea normally of the speeds that you guys are seeing actually on the ground. And we saw some very impressive miles per hour across the whole map yesterday.
I got a whole bunch. Let's start with the Worcester tornado here. And I got to get this graphic off. There we go.
All right.
So this is the Worcester tornado.
Yes, it is.
So the east-west road you see going across the map is U.S. Route 30. And then the road going to the south and east there is State Route 251 down through Apple Creek. I'm sorry, U.S. Route 251. It goes through Apple Creek. And then the road you see going south out of Worcester is State Route 83.
Yeah, so what you want to look for here is the greens and the reds next to each other. That's called a couplet. The greens are moving towards the radar, so that's winds going one way. The reds are going the opposite way. Notice, here's your rotation. You have winds coming in like this. You have winds coming in like this. And you got the rotation in here right there. This is Worcester. So just south on the southern portion of Worcester, right where the ORADC is, right in that area, you can see that nice couplet there. So this is exactly what the radar looked like at the time of the EF1 tornado touchdown there in Wayne County.
That's right.
And this tornado had a storm had a history of producing tornadoes. It produced one in Hayesville out in Ashland County, just back to the west, just a little bit ago, about 15 minutes or so of a difference in time there. So
Absolutely.
What's our next image?
So the next one here, we're going to jump out to Ashtabula County, and this is going to be the Williamsfield tornado. This one's harder, folks. We got two images here.
This was our second most significant tornado during the whole storm. The other one was Salina, did a lot of damage through the downtown, but we'll show you here in a little bit the damage in Ashtabula County in Williamsfield, and it's very impressive, but where's the tornado? Well, look, it's this right in here. You can't really see too much, and one of the big reasons why is the radar beam is scanning about, what, 5,000 feet
This was
in that area?
about 5,000 to 550, 500 feet in the air, so anything below that, the radar cannot see.
So that is an issue when you're trying to figure out what's actually happening on the ground. Now we can get a general idea that this storm is having some rotation, but honestly, looking at literally hundreds if not thousands of different radar scans of some rotation throughout my life, this is nothing really to write home about. It's certainly something that makes you go, And you know right here with these dark red or very vibrant red colors, that is some extremely strong wind. We were showing velocities of 60, 70, 80, 90 miles per hour at times with this complex of storms. So we knew there was damaging wind potential right across Ashtabula County here.
That's right.
Severe thunderstorm warning in effect. But that tornado potential, yeah, again, as Mark mentioned, Monday morning quarterbacking it, you can kind of see where it would be, but really looked a lot less impressive on radar than what actually touched down. Again,
here's the next scan here too. So that's the next scan later.
Same story. It doesn't look much more impressive right in that area.
It looks slightly better.
As it moved out of Williamsfield into Simon. Again, it's definitely rotation. It's over a small area. It's fairly tight. It doesn't look extremely strong based off this radar image. You know there's some good winds with it in general, but tough to see kind of as we're just analyzing everything play by play as it's happening.
That's right. The next one here is going to be the Calcutta tornado.
Okay.
And now let's keep in mind here,
radar,
this is the Cleveland radar.
Okay.
I don't have radar data for the Pittsburgh radar, and this particular image is actually just before they actually issued the tornado warning. And I was on the air at this point. We were talking about this. I was watching this cell from around the Canton area. This is the same cell that moved through Worcester we just talked about a minute ago. And when it hit Canton, it started kind of trying to tighten up and rotate again. And then it lost its act, and it got into eastern Stark County, northwest of Minerva, and it started to try to tighten up, and then it lost its act again. And then it got over to the little town of Hanoverton out here, and it started kind of getting its act together, and that's this section up here, right around Route 30 between Hanoverton and Lisbon. It started really getting its act together, and then it kind of broke up to this. And then this happened right here. This is actually the part of the storm that ended up producing the tornado. The rotation here actually ended up getting a little bit stronger with subsequent scans, at least on the Pittsburgh radar. And this is actually Pittsburgh coverage area. Their radar's a lot closer. They see about 2,800 feet up in the air here. In here, the Cleveland radar is more about 5,800 feet. So this is a little bit further up. The Pittsburgh radar was a much more of a better picture than the Cleveland radar was, but unfortunately I don't have that. I didn't have time to get the data, I'll be honest with you, but I can go back and get it. They did issue a warning on it. It did produce in the town of Calcutta right here in EF1, and then the storm moved off into western Pennsylvania. Didn't really do much else but some wind damage. But that's what that looked like going through Calcutta. And then we had the big one that surprised everybody when the downtown Cleveland got the tornado warning here. And I got two different images here. So there's two different velocity products on the radar. This is impressive. These dark blues here, these are winds of over 100 miles an hour going into the storm. They're actually going west. They're going this way. And then the winds are over here that are in red are actually going this way onshore. So you get this rotation going on here, and you can see the radar has flagged some strong low-level rotation and even put a TVS or a tornado vortex signature on it, meaning that there's a good possibility for a tornado. And it had quite the impressive velocity. It was over 100 miles an hour. So the radar actually produces two different velocity products. This one is called storm relative velocity. It's the motion of the air relative to the storm, and the other one's base velocity, which is the motion of the storm relative to the radar. Sometimes one shows rotation better than the other. The base velocity is kind of everything. The storm relative kind of takes out some other things, and it makes the picture a little clearer. And this was definitely a very clear picture of very strong winds getting wrapped into this storm and then moving on shore. This is prior to the tornado warning being issued, and that's only a half mile offshore, maybe.
It was very close.
Burke Lakefront
right
Airport
over downtown Cleveland, guys.
Burke Lakefront Airport is right here, and this basically came right over the northeastern edge of Burke Lakefront Airport.
It weakened so quickly, which was the lucky thing, because this could very well have been producing a tornado right over Lake Erie, again, with less than a mile north of the Science Center and First Energy Stadium.
Very, very close to literally going into the middle of downtown. So this is the base velocity product. This is when they issued the warning, which was at 5:51 p.m., pretty much right around the time of this scan.
It's still decent, but not as impressive at all.
But look, so now everything is here, right? Here's some strong winds, and then here's the green. This is a little bit different colors than what you saw in the storm relative product, and that's just kind of my color table. But what you have here is this green all going this way, and this is what we call rear flank downdraft, or what you might hear as RFD. And basically what it does is it's going to pretty much wipe out any rotation into the storm. It's just inflow that's getting sucked in back around, and it's just going to gust right out. And that's kind of what we're seeing right here as the storm just moved on shore. The next scan later, there was almost no rotation, but there were still some strong wind velocities being noted. So there were definitely some strong winds on the east side of Cleveland here. But
not many damage reports at all, which is
not
good
really
news.
Anything we've heard out of here, which is really good. Probably some trees down for sure. I'm sure some people lost some power, some lines down. But we didn't have any official tornado confirmed over here.
No.
We didn't have any widespread damage. But boy, this was kind of scary, and we really should watch cells that leave the western lake shore, move over the lake, and impact the eastern side. It seems like every time they do that, something weird happens like that. And I've seen it probably 3 or 4 times in the past 5 years now, where things like that have happened. So I know personally I'm going to keep a closer eye on stuff like that, because that came out, it was like out of nowhere. Just out of nowhere. So the previous image I showed you, the prior scan before that showed next to nothing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, and now we're spinning.
We were lucky that broke apart so quickly as it moved onshore, because that was probably cooking pretty nice over Lake Erie. And we've seen this pattern, almost the reverse, where it looks really nice over land, then hits the lake and dissipates just like that too. So Mother Nature's pretty interesting with how different kind of environments interact with each other.
Yes, and speaking of interesting, how about some downburst activity here in northern Summit County? I'm sure you've heard about this on the news. If you watch the Cleveland news, it's been the story of the day since Monday morning.
Yeah, this is the big boy, and I was out surveying some of the damage all day long on Monday after it happened. So this is strong downburst winds. These were radar calculated at 80, 90, 95 miles per hour across this area. Now, you don't see that too often on radar, and especially don't see that too often where it actually works as coming down to the ground and being confirmed. But that's what we saw. There was definitely widespread 80-plus mile per hour winds that happened within this storm. Now, it formed back towards Strongsville and North Royalton, moved across southern Cuyahoga County in towards northern Summit County, Nordonia, portions of Aurora eventually, Reminderville, Twinsburg, some of the heaviest hit. Trees down all over the place, absolutely snapped, pulled out of the ground, damage to siding, power poles pulled down with a bunch of wires all over, closing roads for some places 2 days.
That's right.
Just a big deal, severe weather event, and pretty much widespread wherever you see this big blob of some very impressive orange and even some brown colors in there.
That's right. So this was the next scan actually as it moved into Twinsburg. So you can see Twinsburg really just took pretty much a direct impact from this downburst. 480 and 91 over there had a lot of damage. I know there were a lot of trees and lines down in that area.
I can't think of the name of this cemetery, but it was in Twinsburg. Some of the biggest trees you can imagine just absolutely snapped and knocked over. Widespread in that area from this downburst. That's probably where a gust of over 90 miles per hour, if not over 100 miles per hour, happened. And that will do more damage than a weak tornado. So I know
Sometimes.
a lot of you kind of think, it was a tornado that hit my house, the damage is horrible and everything. You can still get really bad damage. The main difference is it all twisted or is it just laying down in one direction? So that's
right.
kind of what you need to watch out for when determining the difference between straight line winds or a microburst, downburst, and a tornado. And that's exactly what the Weather Service has been doing the last few days when they go out and they survey these different areas to see if it's a tornado or not.
That's right. So I know we got Jackie watching from Geauga County. Thank you for watching today. So here was the radar as everything kind of moved up along the Geauga and Portage County line, anywhere from about 422 south to about, let's say right about State Route 82 there.
Yeah, now this was pretty widespread across Geauga
Sure
County.
Was.
Just trees down all over the place.
A lot of damage in Auburn Township and pretty much across all of southern Geauga County there.
Auburn was one of the worst hit there. And I mean, I think we saw just widespread accounts of, hey, I can't even get out of my street. There's power lines down. I'm semi-trapped. There's trees down over my property. There's trees into my roof and stuff like that. And it's always unfortunate. Normally during storms around here, you'd hear a couple instances of this. Again, widespread across much of Geauga County. It's a pretty big area of damaging downburst winds.
Very large, absolutely. And then this storm eventually moved into Trumbull County, and you're going to see, now it's not such a large area, still some strong winds.
Yeah, very strong right in here.
But that is actually the northern edge of Mosquito Lake right there.
Yeah, okay.
And then that moved just north of Mecca and then towards
Kingsman.
Toward Kinsman. And, this actually ended up becoming part of that cell that produced a tornado up in
southern Ashtabula County there.
The Williamsfield tornado.
Yep.
It kind of contributed to that, we'll say. So that was
it started
part of it,
to kind of
believe
get
it or
pulled
not.
in a little bit and move off towards the northeast. And then here's southern Ashtabula County right in this area. So as this came north, it interacted with storms coming in from generally the westward direction. And that's exactly where the occlusion between the two happened, and that dropped the tornado, which ended up being confirmed as a EF2. And again, we'll have some damage video of that.
We have that here in a minute. So last thing we have, this is the Boardman area. And so
interesting.
We've seen some comments that, no, there was definitely a tornado, this and that. The Weather Service investigated, and they said damaging winds.
Look at this on radar. Now this is more
doesn't
impressive.
really say damaging winds.
More impressive than the Ashtabula EF2 tornado. Pretty similar to what we saw out of the Salina velocity scan as well. That's pretty impressive. Winds going towards the radar here, very sharp contrast, winds going away here. There's your rotation right there. You think tornado, right? But no.
No.
Weather Service was there. They saw everything.
They said damaging wind. So we can't really pass judgment on it because we really haven't seen very many pictures.
Do you have the pictures?
We got pictures out of Boardman.
Do you have them loaded up?
I have them there in the next frame, actually.
We'll
show you that. But they're not really conclusive of damage of tornadoes. And beyond these 4 pictures we have, I haven't seen anything out of Boardman. So if someone's watching from the Boardman area or you got some pictures out there, we'd love to see them.
There was some decent damage at one of the auto lots there, the Sweeney Chevrolet lot, and that looked to be like there was some pretty good destruction to a couple different walls, and it was isolated. There wasn't any kind of widespread damage in that area.
And we can see that winds can do that too.
Sure.
We saw that actually in the Brunswick area where some very strong winds moved through as part of that big downburst and it caused damage to some walls. So you don't need a tornado to take down brick walls or cinder block walls.
Yeah, and we'll show you that video
the wind
as well,
can certainly
the Brunswick damage where a whole brick wall collapsed.
That's right.
So a lot of really good, as far as severe damage photos that you typically don't see around northern Ohio during a typical severe weather event.
So
something you expect to see on the national news out of Oklahoma.
Here's your video, Brian. So this is Brian's montage here of damage.
Yeah, we'll let you kind of watch. I'll narrate a little bit. So these are trees down. This is one of the worst hit. I believe this was in the Brunswick area, extreme northeastern Medina County. There you could see tree went into the back of the car, tree over that car, knocked down the rear view mirror there, tree into a house. This is southern Cuyahoga County here. Definitely some damage done. Look at that. That's a pretty big tree that snapped. Just widespread, trees down, streets closed, illuminating company First Energy. There you go, Brunswick area, whole garage complex of an apartment absolutely ripped apart there, bricks everywhere. The gutter, downspout.
Ooh.
That's a
Where's
huge
the house?
tree.
That's a big pine tree on that house.
That's a big boy.
Now you see they all snap in the same direction.
Wires all over that house.
You can see the siding pulled off. That looks like aluminum siding.
And then here we go. This is the Ashtabula, and props and thank you to News Channel 5 for this video, courtesy to them. This is severe tornado damage, absolutely. You don't see that over northern Ohio every day. This was originally ruled a macroburst with winds up to 125 miles per hour. They came back out, they surveyed it, they said no, that's an EF2 tornado. They found evidence of rotation. A lot of different power folks out trying to fix the lines. That was a common sight throughout the day, Monday and Tuesday. Chainsaws, you could just hear them all over the place. And again, just yards full of trees down, piled up left and right, more wires down. Wow, definitely a very impressive sight. And again, this was just from a swath of southern Cuyahoga County there in towards Northern Summit. You can see with that last video there, just widespread trees down alongside of Route 8, and a lot of trees just snapped. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, so here's our pictures out of Boardman. This is a very large tree on a house, and you can see there that the tree actually fell from the base. So definitely wind came in
pulled out
and
of the
pushed
ground,
it,
pushed over.
Or a very large giant came in and pushed it or something like that.
You never can rule out
see
King Kong with these incidents.
Yeah, right, Godzilla. So you can see, when you get the tree that falls from the ground, typically that's wind damage. Typically a tornado won't do this. They'll actually snap before they can get to that far. So that's also out of Boardman. I got 3 more out of Boardman. Here's another picture. So this one's a little bit different.
You can see this a lot of times with straight line winds where it does snap more at the top of the trees. It's more common with tornadoes. You always got to watch for the twisting motion there. It's inconclusive. You can't say 100% that this is tornadic, but straight line winds can do that. So it's certainly not indicative of, this was definitely a tornado.
Yeah, kind of the issue with this picture is it's zoomed in on the tree up here where the damage is and the branches are missing and hanging down. Well, what's the rest of the area look like? I mean, we don't really know, because if you get enough wind up here, sometimes, even though it's straight line wind, it can interact with other things.
It can.
And now this starts shifting a different way. The wind comes in, blows it a different way, and it easily snaps off. So that's what we don't really know, is kind of what else was around there. But, sometimes just
to my buddy Matt Jones, meteorologist at WKBN, for these photos here of Boardman. He was out surveying the damage on Monday. So definitely impressive there. That's some really nice storm damage, and certainly snapped near the top. And we saw that in some other spots too with straight line wind damage. This is just a bunch of debris all over the place. You can see pieces of tree here. This tree up against the house looks like some damage to the house up here.
Lots of damage at the house. These windows are blown out. There's some good roof damage up on the roof line there.
I didn't even notice that there.
The windows are blown out there. So this is definitely just straight line wind damage that came in from that direction towards the house, and everything is just leaning against the house. Now, not all the trees are down, but you can see the ones that were most affected by the wind definitely fell. And a lot of big damage on that side of the house there.
Pretty significant. Winds were likely over 90 miles per hour at the time that this happened. So that's pretty much the strength of a strong EF0 or near a weak EF1 tornado.
Yeah.
And then this one, definitely impressive as well. This tree snapped off above the base. You can see tree debris down here. Looks like the shed is tilted pretty badly.
The shed definitely moved. I wish we had more of that picture. That shed is definitely not where it belongs.
No.
And you can see in the background there are a couple of the trees that are all leaning towards one direction.
Yep.
Some snapped at the base, some snapped a little ways up. But again, it just depends how the wind has affected that particular tree. But
yeah, again, tough
to
tell there. It's not conclusive of anything too specific, but overall, it looks like it's kind of in one direction.
For the most part. So really hard to say. I mean, and let's keep in mind, too, that scan we saw of the couplet over Boardman, that's a few thousand feet up there.
It is.
So it may not necessarily be indicative of what's occurring at the surface, but the storm definitely had some rotation in it. Absolutely. I can definitely agree there. The storm had some rotation in it. So, yeah, a very, very busy afternoon and evening for everybody across Ohio, especially us as we track the severe weather.
And it happens on a Sunday. Everybody has plans. You're out and about. You're not settling in to just watch everything on TV. So that's a con. But on the good side of things, nobody's on the road during rush hour, so you have much less of an issue of people out and about.
Well, yes and no. You still got people out and about.
Of course,
they got to go grocery shopping. They're going wherever, visiting friends and family. Football was on, so you got people that go out, they get the other people to watch football games.
And they didn't have to suffer through the misery of watching the Browns.
The Browns had a bye week, thank goodness. Yes. So, it was definitely not bad in terms of people weren't trying to come home from work, and now they're stuck on the highway and there's this tornado warning. And those are scary. Those are very dangerous because what do? You can't do much. There's not really anywhere you can go if you're sitting in traffic. Or if you don't know where you're at, where do you go? Well, you don't know. You just hope for the best.
Yeah.
It's sometimes all you can do.
A few people that I talked to were like, oh my gosh, the time change. It's already dark by 5 o'clock, and now we have these storms coming through. We can't even see what's happening.
Yeah, that makes it difficult.
I'm trying to hold on to the door, and it's blowing myself in, and it's like, okay, just time to get to the basement. So, good news. A lot of people did, even without a tornado warning, head down to the basement when they heard those winds coming.
And across the northern, Summit County and those downburst winds that moved into Portage and Geauga County, I know I was even telling people, what, best place to go in this case is probably the basement right now because there's just such strong winds coming through. It's going to knock stuff over real quick. You're not going to know what hit your house. You're going to be like, I didn't know it was going to happen. No, it happens that fast. You're not going to get much advance warning on it coming. It's just going to happen. And there were severe thunderstorm warnings out on those storms ahead of time, which is great. But you're not going to know that wind's going to impact you until after it actually happened. It was happening that fast. So I always tell people, hey, best place to go right now might be the basement till that wind moves through because it's going to do some damage, and sure enough, it did some extensive damage there.
Yeah, we saw so many different pictures of trees into houses and stuff like that. There's nothing stopping those from going right through a bedroom window, so it's always best to get away from doors and windows, lowest level of your home.
Absolutely.
During these big-time severe events like that. And props to the National Weather Service and the Storm Prediction Center on putting out outlooks a few days ahead of time and warning all these storms ahead of time as well. I know it's never perfect with weather. We didn't have tornado warnings on all the different tornadoes.
You're not going to get that with this setup.
No,
it's impossible to do, unfortunately, because they just occur so briefly, and sometimes they occur with really no advance notification of, okay, this storm's starting to spin or starting to do something. Nope, there it is, and there it's gone. Just like that. So it's very hard to put a tornado warning on that.
And you never want to put a tornado warning out for one of those that does just do it and end it, and then that's it, because then you have a warning for something that isn't producing.
But we do get that here in Ohio too.
Sure.
But with this particular system, we knew that tornadoes were possible, and we know what they can do. We know what they're capable of. And, we just had 17 tornadoes occur in the state, so we knew what it was capable of. Unfortunately, we didn't think we'd get that much activity on Sunday.
Not that
I wasn't looking for 17 tornadoes. I was looking for a handful. What I was going for, about 3 to 5 tornadoes, all off towards the western part of the state. Not here in north central Ohio. Definitely no EF2 in Ashtabula County. That's for sure. Because everything looked to be a little bit better west. But yeah, the damage in Ashtabula County was insane. And we really think that might have been a combination of a downburst and a tornado too. We do think we saw a little bit of both up there.
And I think that's probably would make a lot of sense with the Weather Service folks surveying that damage if they found a lot supportive of both. So that would make a good amount of kind of putting it together like, we need to go back there because this just doesn't fully add up. Okay, it's probably mainly a tornado.
Yeah. I'm glad they did go back and resurvey and go, hey, you know what? Nope, we were wrong. This is what happened. That's really good, actually.
Absolutely.
When they came out and said it was a macro burst, I'm like, well, that's the first known instance of a macro burst in Ohio that I've heard of in 20 years.
Well, that's strong, 125 mile per hour winds.
With strong winds like that,
happen.
yeah. But we don't get microbursts around in this part of the country too much.
Houses.
Yeah, and they can. I've seen macroburst damage in pictures and in videos from years past that have done just as much damage as an EF2 tornado. It's not hard to do when you get winds that strong. It's a lot of wind occurring for a minute, sometimes more, and a tornado is only a few seconds. So it can do a lot of similar damage. And it does it across such a large area. And it was like, wow. So they said macroburst, and I'm like, whoa. That's a first for me. I mean, they're so rare in general to have such a large area of extensive wind damage like that. So it was interesting. But it was interesting to hear them go back and say, it was a tornado, and it was an EF2. Oh.
They have been extremely busy on the last few days surveying all this damage. Most of all of the tornadoes that touched down across the state were in the Cleveland National Weather Service office coverage area. So
they had a very busy day.
They've been bouncing around from one spot to the next. We had that more concentrated area there, and what's almost known as Ohio's local tornado alley across north central Ohio.
Nice and flat out there.
Yep.
That's for sure.
That certainly helps. You get the geography to just line up right, and it seems like a lot of systems just come in, and we've certainly seen our fair share just in the last 5 years or so from Wayne County into Erie, Huron County, Ashland County, back to the west a little bit.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And again, if you did join us for Severe Weather coverage on Sunday, thank you so much for that. Again, we do appreciate that. We don't get a lot to do that much because it's been kind of quiet.
Yeah.
So, but if you watched on TV, hey, don't harass the local meteorologist because they cut into your football game.
We're trying to save lives out here, people.
Football game. It's a game. It's like playing Monopoly at home. The only difference is you're just watching something a little different on TV. Don't go harassing the local TV station or the local TV meteorologist. You cut into my football game. I missed a touchdown. You're terrible. No one cares about the tornado. And I mean nobody except when it hits your house and takes out your family members.
See, you saw all the pictures,
then all of a sudden
guys,
you
that's
care.
A lot of storm damage, and some of it very severe. Luckily, the only injuries that we had were in the western portion of the state, and it looks like everybody's doing okay in the Salina area.
Yeah, non-life-threatening injuries, but people got hurt.
All of this other damage, we were very, very fortunate not to have any other injuries.
Exactly. We were definitely fortunate and lucky. We didn't have fatalities.
It doesn't always work out like that, and there's been so many people that will reach out and say, well, the meteorologist on TV really helped me stay safe because I would have known otherwise. I need to get down to the basement, and sometimes it approaches your house so quickly that you don't have time to really react and get the pets together, get the kids together, get downstairs to your safe spot. So it's really important to just respect that, hey, sometimes I got to just find the football game somewhere else, or I love watching my Wheel of Fortune, right? Same kind of story. You can find it online somewhere, and just be thankful you're safe, and hope that everybody else is heeding those warnings.
It really comes down to this. Is your football game or your evening TV show more important than you living tomorrow?
Yeah.
No, it's really not. It really isn't. You can go back and get highlights of the football game. You can probably go back and watch your TV show on like 5 different apps on your tablet or your TV or whatever. Everything's on demand. You could go back and find it. You really can.
And a lot of the TV stations are even doing the double boxes on screen, so you even in a smaller way, you can still see the programming you want to watch. I know it's not preferable, but we're trying as an industry to be able to offer the same information and reach you where you want to be reached without interrupting your programming. But hey, weather people are people too. Be nice.
That's right. Be nice to them. And hey, you know what? They got a requirement that when a tornado warning comes
By
on
the
TV,
FCC.
the
Yes, you
FCC
have to.
mandates them to go on TV. So it's not them saying, okay, we're going to go on TV because there's a tornado warning. It's we're going on TV because we have to go on TV because the FCC sees that we don't. We're getting a big fine. We're getting in trouble.
Yep.
You know, so it's a public safety first, entertainment later type deal at that point, and rightfully so. It's there to help protect people, yourself, your neighbors, your community, and surrounding areas. That's what they're there for. That's what they're going to do. It's great. Don't harass them.
Yeah.
They're required to do it, let
Even
alone
in
that they're
Tornado
going to
Alley,
do it
it's
anyways.
not like you're dealing with this every day of the year. This is a pretty isolated thing, a few times a year.
I've been to Oklahoma City a few times for my job in the past, and I've been out there during different types of weather. And
Sunbury?
I tell you what, it's more extreme out there than it is in Ohio. I've been out there during an ice storm. When they get ice, you don't want to go near because everything ice is over. It's flat as a pancake, and you can't walk outside. It takes just about that much ice, and it's just an ice rink.
That's horrible.
You don't want to do it.
No
it's not fun. So I was there during a record ice storm, January 2010. I went back.
How much ice?
It was, and some places got like a quarter-inch of ice.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
You know, and it was, pretty significant. I think a couple places south got an inch. But
really
where
bad.
I was at, we got about a quarter-inch. A couple places maybe closer to a half an inch.
We had one of those in the 90s here locally.
Yes,
I don't
we did.
remember what year, but it was a solid
I don't
inch.
remember either, but there was
really bad.
a year where we got a lot of heavy ice. I went back again in the summer of 2011, and every day was 100 degrees or better. It was about 109, 110 every day. And it's Oklahoma. It's flat, so there's always wind. So you walk out of an air-conditioned building in the middle of the afternoon. It was kind of like walking into a hairdryer. It had that effect. It was awful. The coolest day when I was there was 96 because there was a storm nearby. So it was 96 and humid. It felt awful. It was still windy, too. I had to go back again later that year in October and November of 2011, and we had 3 earthquakes and a day of a tornado outbreak. And one of the earthquakes occurred on the tornado outbreak. So, naturally the next day, Oklahoma became the tornado quake state.
Yes,
but I've been out there during all that, and when they get tornadoes, let me tell you what. It's no joke. Yeah. It's wall-to-wall coverage on TV by every station in Oklahoma City, and every person is watching one of those stations. Yep. They don't care about anything else that's on TV. They're watching that because they want to know what's coming.
Yeah, very weather-savvy folk out there. They really appreciate the actual science that goes into these storms.
That, and you look at how significant some of the stuff they had in the past. They know it can get dangerous. They know it can happen very, very fast. And most recently, the 2 tornadoes that went through Moore in 2011 and again in 2013.
Destroys the whole city?
Both formed very rapidly. They didn't become EF5s miles before moving into Moore. Mm-hmm. They became an EF5 very rapidly, very, very quickly. It occurred in such a short period of time that you don't really have time to react. And out there, most places don't have basements. They got to go somewhere to take shelter. If they got a storm shelter, they got to go to it somehow. They either got to go outside or they get into their garage and they got to move a car or something like that. They don't have time to waste. They're going to go when they can, if it looks like it's going to hit them. So don't harass the meteorologists on TV when a tornado warning gets issued. Nobody cares about your football game or your TV show. They care about the weather because they care about their lives. And that's my public service announcement for the week.
The more you know. No, definitely appreciate that, guys. But any questions, comments, concerns?
We got nothing.
We got nothing. We're talking to ourselves. No, I'm just joking. Thank you so much for everybody that has watched us today. Hopefully you enjoyed watching some of the recap, some of the science involved with actually the radar that we're looking at when we're tracking these storms, and then some pretty impressive video and pictures from this event as well.
That's for sure. And then when you join us here next time, I'm sure we'll be talking snow.
Yeah, watch out again.
Sorry, guys.
A little bit of lake effect snow in the Snowbelt counties here during the day on Friday. Our first big blast of really cold air for everybody as well. And it looks like we're going to stay in a general cooler pattern for much of the month of November, especially another cold blast near Thanksgiving.
Yeah, now it's looking like a cold blast now instead of a little bit of a warm-up like things were kind of pointing to earlier in the month.
Things have changed a bit.
We're looking to turn colder going into late November now. So
if you're looking for a winter forecast, of course, we posted that over the last couple weeks on our website. You can go to neoweather.us and click on the long range tab and see all that kind of information as well.
And if you haven't pulled out your winter coat yet, you might want to start getting that ready. Yeah. We're going to need it here soon.
In spots.
For sure. Thank you for joining us again this week, and we'll probably be back next week talking about some snow.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, guys. You have yourself a great afternoon. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.